Welcome to the February 22nd meeting of the Town of Richmond ARPA Committee. Our agenda, I'm going to share it here on the screen. It is a short agenda. Okay, so we are going to begin with our public comment. Is there anybody on the call who would like to make a public comment about any item not on the agenda?
I'm not sure, Jay. I'm sorry, I forgot to push my hand up. Sorry about that, Jay. I'm not sure if it falls under discussion of projects to recommend to the select board for funding. Is that anything we've gone over before and it's okay to bring it up then?
Sure.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Hearing no other public comment, does anybody have any additions or deletions to the agenda? Okay, then moving on to our agenda proper. Our first item of business is to review the minutes of the February 8th meeting. Hey, Tom Camarada, and Tom is joining us. Yeah, because the candidate form is next door. We're hiding here with the room door closed. We have just well, we only just got started. I thought I had the minutes downloaded, but I will just be concise. Does anybody have any comments, additions, changes, anything whatsoever reflecting the minutes from 2 weeks ago?
No,
Okay.
This is Mary. I'd like to move the minutes for the last ARPA meeting. Although I wasn't there, I am able to move the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the minutes from 2 weeks ago. We have a second. Any comment? Okay, all in favor, please state your name and your vote.
Mary, abstain.
Tom, aye. Okay. And I didn't hear the voices over the phone except for Mary.
Kara abstain. I wasn't
Okay,
there.
and Josh?
Josh, who was the second? I didn't hear that.
I'm sorry?
Who was the second?
Jeff Forward.
Oh, Jeff. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the minutes have passed. Let's now get down to our main item of business. Before I share the project list that I've got pulled up, I apologize to people here in the room. I think this projector needs a new bulb, but hopefully we can still see well enough. If we need to turn the overhead lights down when I'm sharing the document, we can. I'd just like to kind of get a sense, share what my sense of where we stand. We've been meeting together for over a year now, and we are into the second month of 2023. It's almost town meeting, and we have gone through a very deliberate process of gathering suggestions, and we have eliminated some as being too expensive or not really being workable for a number of reasons. Molly and Tom were good enough to come up with what I think are some pretty good criteria for how to evaluate suggestions. We've heard from the Town Recreation Committee. We've heard from the Town Transportation Committee. We have heard from Linda Parent. And we have a list of suggestions for which we have prices that are not final. We have taken no vote on this, but that I think are probably on most people's list is acceptable. And that's what I'd like to spend some time tonight talking about. One thing to note is that we are not under obligation to spend all $1.2 million immediately. We'll be electing a new select board, and the new select board will contain at least one and possibly two new members, and they may want to take their own time thinking about ARPA. So we may be making recommendations and then seeing them acted on sometime in July. We don't know. But we have talked in a general sense of any money left over after the recreation, transportation, digitization projects that's possibly going to the town center. I've heard from numerous people saying they think that would be a good idea, but at the end of the day, of course, that's selected. Before I bring up the list that as I have it right now, would anybody else like to make any comment about kind of where they see us at this point? Are you muted?
Oh, I didn't, sometimes you're coming in and out, so I apologize if you called on me. I apologize. And I didn't hear when the other people were voting in the room, so I don't know if something happened with the mic there.
Oh, I'm
Thank
terribly
you.
sorry.
It's
I
okay. No,
thought
it's
that-
okay, Jay. But thank you for that summary. I did hear the summary, and I think that was a great summary. I really appreciate you refreshing and reminding us all where we've come from and where we're going to. The question that I have for you and the rest of the committee is, you knew that I was connecting the UVM student with the rec committee, and that the design was, she also met with Pete Goslin. I introduced her to Pete Goslin, and she prepared a design for the rec committee and presented to them. There was some confusion with the rec committee and the communication between the ARPA committee on if they were allowed to amend the request to include any of the features of the design, and they believed they were not allowed to, that it was too late. So I think it's just a miscommunication, and that's why I'm bringing it in front of the whole committee and didn't just reach out to one person. If the committee is still open to that, I will get in touch. The rec committee said, please move forward with having the UVM student and stuff work to create like a grocery list of pricing for the different things as estimates, and they could be placeholders. But I didn't want the UVM student to continue on this project if I was getting mixed messages from the rec committee thinking that the ARPA said that they're done, no
Right.
more, does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, I got an email from Sherry Lynn saying, can we come back for a second stab at it? And I said, certainly. If there's still money there to be spent, I don't see any reason why we have to say you speak now or forever hold your peace. If they come forward with a good suggestion, or if they come forward and say we no longer this amount of money because somebody is going to donate an entire playground, I see no reason that either way. Okay. So go ahead, Jeff.
I have a couple.
I can't hear Jeff. Can everybody else hear
Yeah.
Jeff?
I can't. No.
I tried. Oh, you hear me now? Yes.
I
No.
can hear you now. Yes.
Okay.
Nope, I can't hear him again.
Gone.
Weird. I am.
No, it's not. He's.
He's pretending to talk.
Help. Oh, okay.
Nice.
Okay. Right now.
You hear me now?
No.
Is this one of those commercials for Verizon?
And Jay, just to let you know, it was a different committee member that was talking to me, emailing me, and Grace. So I bet it was just a miscommunication between the rec committee. Thanks. We hear
I
nothing.
can't tell if my
Nobody's saying.
hand is, I can't
Nope,
tell
it's
if
not you,
what
Mary.
symbol it is. What symbol is it to raise my hand? But I have a brief comment.
Okay, could you wait till Jeff is done?
Sure, I can't hear him, so I didn't know.
We can't hear him at all. Nope, we can't hear him at all.
No, that's fine. Jay will have to summarize.
Okay. We're going to have to do that annoying thing that we don't like doing, which is to use our PC mics and turn the computer around periodically. That once again, the video is working, the audio is not. So yeah, I'll, yeah, I'm going to. Yeah, I've got one at home that I don't. Okay,
Hey,
so
why can we hear you but nobody else? Is the owl picking you up? Because you're coming through loud and clear.
okay, it is probably a problem between keyboard and chair. How about now? Wait, I tried muting.
Now I can't hear Jay because it looks like the room
Okay.
is muted. But now
So
you're
I've
back.
got my computer set to use. Okay, try it again.
Can you hear me now? Can
Yeah.
you hear me? You can.
Okay, let's go forward then.
Let's try that. Okay, can everybody hear me? Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Okay,
Excellent.
so the Transportation Committee came to us twice with different proposals. The first proposal was for one section of Bridge Street and for us to cover the town share, cost share after a grant.
Mhm.
It was a 20% cost share, 60 some odd thousands dollars. They came to us a second time and asked for to complete the Bridge Street project up to basically to the traffic light up to Main Street. Recognizing that one would not likely get a grant. We would only get one grant over the course of several years. So right now, the ask from the Transportation Committee is a grant approved project and a non-grant approved project. They will not know if they get the grant for a few months now. I think it's May.
Months?
Yeah,
Okay, I thought it was May.
yeah.
Well, that is.
There's a few months, right? So May. You know, one thing that, and similarly, the library, although the library trustees have not come to us yet,
Mhm.
I know that they're interested in doing so. There are several library grants that are coming up. That would require a cost share, and that might be an appropriate use of these funds.
Right.
So it seems to be, you know, as far as timing goes, and we still have not heard from the Town Center Committee.
Mhm.
So those are three actually big committees
Right.
that are uncertain. So,
And there's a fourth you don't know about.
the reason I bring it up is not because of those particular projects. It's more process and time.
Right. So Jeff is kind of, and Mary, I know you wanted to make a comment. Jeff is kind of anticipating where I'm going. As I was trying to say, we don't have to spend it all at once. We can basically make recommendations in waves as amounts come in. But of course, we have to remember that the Recreation Committee has made a lot of really interesting ideas that I think we'd all kind of like to see, but they could wind up being pushed aside if we have a really great opportunity for a grant relating to a library project.
Mhm.
What kind of grants are they talking about? Like, or what?
The library, so libraries in specifically have received a ton of money. They've received both a kind of an ARPA funding money that it went to the Vermont Department of Libraries. And there was a Leahy earmark that went. So it would totally get something like $30 million.
Yeah,
They're supposed to come up with a grant program in March.
yeah. What kind of projects?
So the projects that we're looking at the library are the exterior shell of the building has a lot of deterioration, deferred maintenance. That it's not going to get better if it's not addressed. And we don't have enough money in the town center fund to address all of those projects. If they could get grant money, it might be a way to leverage the ARPA money as well. But they haven't come up with a specific request to us yet.
Okay.
Is there high maintenance, a lot of maintenance in that building? Sounds like it.
Oh, you could say that.
Yeah,
We've already spent $300,000 and there's another $400,000 worth of projects.
Well, I want to get back to Mary. Mary had a comment. Mary, go ahead.
Thank you. It's just brief. I appreciate what you suggested, Jay, that the new select board would and necessarily should be reviewing any of the information coming forward. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, so I do have a project list that represents what we've heard from so far. There is only one item on the list right now that I would recommend that we just go ahead and tell the new select board when it's in office, go ahead and spend it, and that would be digitizing of the town land record.
Yeah.
That's something that I have not heard anybody say that CDC, why would we want to do that? I mean, and the benefits are fairly self-evident. I wanted to mention one kind of out of the left field kind of request from a committee most people don't remember exists, which is to say the Parade and Fireworks Committee. Just a little background, the parade, oh, Kara, go ahead.
No, I can wait till after you talk about parade and fireworks.
Okay. Parade and Fireworks. So the Parade and Fireworks Committee, as some of you know, has been made up primarily of a family and their extended friends network and anybody from year to year who wishes to help out. Sue Glennon and her family, Stephanie Hartsfield, have been putting it together, except for, of course, last year when they basically hit the wall. And I mean that in a good sense. They weren't giving up. It was beyond their ability to do at the time. To Celebrate Richmond did, I think, a very good job. The town has agreed to pay for the fireworks, just lock, stock, and barrel. So that relieves from the Parade Fireworks Committee the necessity to go rob banks to pay for it. Because the prices are going up every year. In order to get the town fireworks at all this year, we had to commit very early to an amount, I think, north of $12,000. The Parade Fireworks Committee is authorized to do under our town coin drop ordinance, which we have one of, to do 2 coin drops. They have to get the dates agreed to by the select board. The fire department also has the right to do two coin drops. Nobody else is listed, but they are allowed. And they say that typically they raise about $4,000 per coin drop. And I suggest that we need to get big signs to put out in all 4 corners as people approach the intersection of town saying this is for the 4th of July. So that people would be more prone to say, I'm going to give if I know who it's for. The band shell, as we all know, faces the wrong way. It's not suitable for a lot of purposes because it faces the road and that there's a limited amount of people that you can get seeing something. And it's when you try to have a July 4th festivities and then all the way up there is the music, it's not as involved as it could be. The committee has until recently just said Pete Gosselin and his band, here's $1,000 to make some music. And Pete does a great job if you've heard his band, but it's not something that it's not appointment making. We don't want to get to the park too late in this Pete. This year's parade theme is going to be music, music, music. I suggested that phrasing as a joke and everybody went, stop right there. That's what they're calling it. So we have decided that we're not going to go with Pete. And I believe Sue has talked to Pete about that we'd like to make it more participatory, involve more groups. And our big reason to come to the park before the fireworks thing, and I'm not making this up, is a townwide karaoke competition. We have a lot of people in town who sing karaoke. It's fun. And there's one thing that we don't have, and that is a stage. When I talk about a stage, I'm talking about, like you've probably seen at many events, 24 by 24 portable stage. They assemble it with a ramp, step, and a 20 by 20 canopy with no center pole. We could rent one of those for $2,700. That's for one time, for one event, for 1 year. And that's once that money is spent, it's spent. Also, if they're making $8,000 period off the coin drops, and that's speculative, we don't know that they would make that much. It would be nice if we did not have to sink a third of that money on a stage. We may wind up doing it this year nonetheless, because even if we did approve purchasing of the stage, we probably wouldn't have it in time for this year's event. But to get to the point, a stage, 20 by 20, 24 by 24 with a 20 by 20 canopy and a ramp and steps with handrails would be altogether about $25,000. And that would be, if we look at and I'm not saying we have to, I'm just.
What was that, Jay? Could you repeat that?
$25,000 for everything.
For the stage and what else?
The stage, the canopy, the 20 by 20 canopy with no center pole so that you're not bonking into a pole, a ramp and steps with guardrails. It has to be ADA compliant, so we need the ramp.
Thank you.
So I've got a list here, which I think I probably need to make larger, because even I can't see it too well on the projector.
Can I just say, the reason the band shell's facing east is because the sunset's in the west. So if anybody's performing, it's right in their eyes.
Oh, absolutely.
So as a performer, like I have performed there, and like the community band, if they're sitting there and the sun is in their eyes, they can't see their music.
Right.
So I think that's probably why it faces the wrong direction.
And I understand that there was also the aspect of once upon a time, we had a town crash there.
Ooh,
and people want to be able to see it as they drove by.
okay.
I don't know if that's true. That's what several people have told me, and it's a fine band shell. I mean, it does need some repair and it's fine for the Richmond Community Band, but does not lend itself well to if we wanted to have periodic concerts in the park, as it were.
Really not.
So I'm not trying to do a hard sell on this. I'm just trying to say, if we look at all the kind of,
You want to share your screen so that?
yeah, I need to share my screen. I'm playing with the Zoom, but I can fix the Zoom once I. Okay, so let me share my screen. Where is the Zoom window?
You know,
Okay,
if a pavilion was, converting that into a pavilion was part of the recreation's plan?
they wanted to fix it up. We've got an item here for $10,000 of band shell renovations,
Mhm.
but I don't think that they had in mind to do a full pavilion.
Jake, could I speak
Okay.
for just a minute?
Please do.
This goes back to, and I wanted to, that's why my hand was up, was to reconfirm from the committee that I should go back to the UVM student to work on redoing this list for the recreational group to include some of the new things. And it was called a pavilion, which was proposed.
Right.
And that there was going to potentially be a smaller pavilion and a larger pavilion, depending on a meeting with a couple folks regarding the band shell first.
Right.
Because it was a sensitive matter. The UVM student didn't jump on any recommendations for the band shell until a couple of people who have the historical history of the band
Right.
shell. She had an opportunity to
And a
talk to them,
pavilion,
but
yeah, as Kara mentioned, a large and small pavilion, depending on where they're sited, a pavilion might work perfectly well for a performance
Be
space.
amazing.
Yeah. And then
so
we just
back to my
obviously would-
question.
Yeah, I think we
Do
should
you
go back and
want
get.
to go
Yeah.
ahead? Okay. So you could, my point is, with a lot of this stuff, you might just want to wait then and set it aside for just a minute on the
right.
rec stuff, because it can come back in front of you with a list like this. And
Right.
if there's a pavilion on it, if
Right.
there's, the different things on this can be presented all in full.
Right.
But aside from the 4th of July stuff, that you might want to wait on the 4th of July stuff, because if it's better to build a pavilion and then potentially just rent a stage, you'll make those decisions as you go. But
As we go, right.
my instinct on the 4th of July stuff is they already own some equipment that potentially should be sold because it won't be used in years to come.
Right.
That you really need to look at that before you want us to buy more equipment for something that's a test run. So
Incidentally, we are taking volunteers to go into the storage space where the 4th of July committee stuff is. I understand that
Where is it?
it's down behind the highway building. Yeah, it's there. It's a little
there's
scary.
trailers and stuff like that, but you also have, and I don't want to get into the whole thing, but the fry trailer to do the fries and the
Right.
all that kind of stuff. So I don't think we should get in depth. We have very limited time
No, I
to
agree.
talk 4th of
I
July,
agree.
but I
That's
love
my-
that you brought it up. But let me do the rec stuff and then you guys can make that decision on 4th
Right.
of
So
July.
like I said about 10 minutes ago, the only item right now that I feel comfortable saying, I think this is a no-brainer, select board, this is the recommendation, is the one in yellow there, which is probably hard to read. Digitizing town records. Everything else on this list right now, there is a very strong reason to wait. If you just,
You have this list,
I could email it to you.
yeah.
I was throwing it together today, and I waited to send it out because I wanted to see what comment people had, what additions we want to make. If you look at the big number at the bottom, 667,509, that is obviously a real throw a dart at the dartboard and see what you get kind of number. If you look up at the top, the numbers that the transportation committee gave to us were $219,509 for the Bridge Streets Complete Street Project, $35,000 for the municipal oversight. We all said, what is that? And they said, project engineering, it's stuff. And then we have the next two lines, the Bridge Street East Sidewalk Project. If we get the TAP grant, which we don't know if we will, we'd be looking at a match of 20%, so $64,000. If we don't get the TAP grant and we chose to pay for the entire project out of a combination of town existing money and ARPA money, it would be $320,000. So the $320,000 is not included in that $667,000 total.
Oh, okay.
That's why I italicized it, but that was probably not very clear. So right now, let's just, for grins and giggles, this is not a list that we're taking and giving on to the select board right now. If we take those numbers for the recreation items as the shots in the dark that they are, pursuant to getting more input from Kara's guy, or is it a guy? Before I say guy,
A
is it a
female.
guy?
It's a female.
Thank you.
Female.
It's a female.
Yes.
I'm not going to say gal. I'll just be professional and say Kara's UVM.
You can call her Grace. Her name is Grace.
Okay. Grace, that worked. Okay, so Grace, pursuant to Grace getting back to us on some of these things. This is
Can
kind
you
of
send this list that you have the rec stuff already on, so I make sure, I just don't want to forget if there's
No, I'm
one thing
going
that
to.
the rec committee came up with. Thank you.
No, I was waiting to send it out because I want to see what things we want to adding to it or striking from it or modifying in some sense. But this is, again, this is just a nebulous, but more coalesced than it was 3 months ago, kind of a list.
This is a good summary of what we've heard so far.
Yeah, it's there, and I do have a few questions.
Please do.
So again, just to clarify, so the 320 is not added into the 670, so it's over $1 million. Close to $1 million, is that what you're saying? If you add it in,
yes.
If we added it in, we would be taking out 64,000. It would be one of the other.
Okay. Because 64.
64,000 would be our
Okay.
match.
Yeah, so it'd be $1 million.
$1 million, okay.
Mhm.
Just 1.2
Jay,
million.
right beside that, Jay, right beside the put not included in total, that's great, but put replaces 64,000 if included.
Sure. That's fine, I'll do that.
The 64, it is
Yes.
No,
is added into the 670,
Mhm.
660, okay.
Yep.
But so couple things. I mean, I've heard a lot about the digitization, but I don't really know exactly what that means. You know, it sounds
Okay.
like you guys are. Like,
Well, what I can explain, and I'm sure Josh and Kara can probably jump in with more. One of the things that Linda spends a lot of her time doing is people come in to look at the paper land records there's
Yeah.
people in there all day, every day. It's
Yeah.
one of, and they're literally paper. I mean, they look like, I'm holding up here in the room, the paper that just the land records for Brown Court.
Okay, yeah.
They look like this.
Yeah.
Now, they're not going to be translated into modern Courier news
English.
fonts. They would still be what you see, but they would not be in file folders and so forth. I mean, we wouldn't probably get rid of them. We would digitize them so they were readily available. But ultimately, the idea would be that somebody in Kentucky who, for some strange reason, needs to research their grandfather's deed from Richmond, Vermont, would be able to log into a website and view it there. And she would have, and it would be much easier, and it would be less work for Linda.
There'll be a lot of time saving, a lot of operational savings.
Right.
Okay.
Now, Josh,
Jay,
Kara, do you want to add?
could I
anything to
add?
that?
Yeah, I'd
Oh.
love to add because I've done a lot of land record research.
Right, I know
She
you have.
currently has in the budget to do current land records as they come in, they get scanned and they get created electronically. It's the historical ones that go back to the older volumes that then take more time, energy, and money to create the electronic version of them. And during COVID, when the actual office was closed, she would actually have to go pull the records for lawyers before lawyers could actually go into the building, and she'd have to send them copies of them electronically. So if all else fails, it's the way a lot of towns are going, and this would be a ideal opportunity for us to get caught up technology wise in the actual land records itself. And I'd love Josh to also talk about the possibility and the cost of digitizing the zoning records, because that's a huge project that also should be undertaken, because part of a title search is not just the deed research, but it's the zoning files as well. And I know since historically zoning files we've been through a lot of zoning administrators, so I'm not blaming any one of them, but they have had issues with not everything being in them, or some of them being misfiled and all of that kind of stuff. So an electronic version in that whole process and having somebody independently do it would allow that to be digitized. So I'd put that out there as well.
Josh, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I don't really have a cost estimate. It's not a project I've looked into at this point, but I think it would be a good one to look into.
Okay.
So where I was, sorry, like where I was kind of going, doesn't really kind of meet the criteria that we already discussed, long lasting as operational savings, things of that nature. And it sounds clearly that it will, that it would, and certainly make Linda's life a whole lot easier, right? So that's fine. I mean, it's great, I think it's great that it's on this list. The 4th of July thing, I'm not quite sure that really does meet the criteria, but.
So let's stick with the land records for a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a couple of comments on that. We do have a records restoration reserve fund, and I'm not exactly sure what that is for, but it's like $180,000 that are in the reserve fund right now. Josh, do you know what that's for? Josh?
I am not I'm sorry. I'm not 100% sure. I think Linda uses some of it for digitizing, but I would leave the details to Linda. Kara might know more than I do on that one, actually.
That's a great point, Jeff. And it might be that she's looking to use some of that money plus this money to get it all done, to get it caught up, and doing all the historical. I think it's a great question, if Josh doesn't mind looking into before our next meeting, is to confirm what that is, that reserve fund is and what it's being used for, along with what the cost would be to digitize the zoning records, so that we have a true breakdown of these are the land records and what's in reserve. And if we did a complete project right now and got it done, this is how much more she'd need.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah,
With a little bit of reserve going forward, because if it's really for restoring books or replacing books, that kind of thing.
So I absolutely agree that this is a good idea. I question the $75,000 number.
Right.
For
Well,
one.
that number I got from her half an hour ago.
Yeah, and this is one she came in originally, but I wonder if she's looked into what it would really take to implement it. And it might be worth getting some bids on what it would take to digitize whatever records I think it would be really good governance if it was easily searchable. And I know there are issues with searching, but easily obtainable online. I think that would be terrific. Kara, do you know if what she's talking about is like the listers cards too, or?
It's a great question. And Josh, if you don't mind, I don't mind following up with Linda on this, because I've done a lot of research in both the listers cards and the land records and the zoning files to know exactly what she's talking about. I'll circle back with her, confirm what her reserves are, what she's talking about, how much she needs moving forward for a yearly, to keep in the reserves, but to also follow up and then come back, circle around back to you, Josh, in regards to the zoning. And if the people who do the scanning and the digitizing of the land records also do zoning records.
So just to close the loop on this, I think this is an appropriate use of ARPA money. I don't really know how much it's going to cost, but I believe it'll be substantial. And I think we should have a plan for it. Not just give Linda $75,000 and say, please, can you do this?
Go
Yes.
handle tables in Atlantic City.
So I think we should get any company that does do this to
give us a
proposal,
Yeah.
and we'd probably have to put it out to bid,
RFP.
but
Yes.
it's a really good use of these funds because it does fit the criteria. It's operational savings, it's good governance. And it's long lasting.
And in the sense that it helps the economy of the town, I'm sure that having better access. One other factor that I particularly like about it is it makes us more disaster proof. One of the weaknesses of this building right now is that we're in the floodplain and the records are stored in this building. And
you might throw some of that into the Richmond Historical Society too, whatever, can be digitized of their artifacts as well. I think online stuff, there's a lot of issues around it, and I don't know what they all are. I remember Katie Mather going, saying searchable is easier said than done. There's a lot of issues
Right.
like that. But, whatever it is, I think, we don't need to do this quickly.
But we do need more information.
And we should do it
Right.
thoughtfully.
Right. So when I
And-
say that
and
this is one thing I feel comfortable, just a sec, Karen. When I say this is one thing I think we all feel relatively comfortable saying to the select board, we at least have this. I'm not saying here's the final amount. I'm just saying that unambiguously, I believe this is something that we can get.
If it costs $2 million, I might have. a
Probably.
question.
Right. Kara, go ahead.
There's more than one piece to this puzzle about digitizing land records. There's digitizing land records so that people can actually physically be in the building to do a search on our computer and through, our server that way versus being able to log into something and search via the internet
Yeah.
by a browser. So
Right.
I will research the pieces unless Josh, I don't mean to step on your toes on this. I don't want to, unless you want to
Go
take
for
that
it.
on, but I have, okay, so I
Go
get
for
this
it.
stuff and I get this stuff and I understand it. And I have no problem with putting the pieces to the puzzle together. The last piece of the puzzle for me will be the historical society stuff. Let me get a grasp about the pieces to the puzzle that you've asked for, including potentially the listers cards
Mhm.
and that aspect. But since you're in the middle of a reappraisal, it's going to be a little bit more, I'm not going to push that one. So it'll be land records, zoning records, potentially listers records, and historical society information.
And
Okay.
this might be like a 2-year project.
It might be. Mhm. I'm gonna
Oh,
add
it
one
might
other
be longer
thing.
than that.
I'm gonna put my computer geek hat on. A friend of mine is a metadata specialist. Metadata is data about data. It's what pieces of data are you keeping? And what she does for a living is basically take databases and index. And indexing is not just name, author, and subject. It is an enormous amount of work to make things as fully searchable. Katie is right. We can give each document a title and then at least the title is searchable, but to have all the fields, like what keywords, when was this record updated? What date is this land record for? You can throw as much money as you want at that and you'll still have stuff to do.
Does your friend does this kind of thing?
Well, she's working for Google now. She used to work for the Wall Street Journal and she's worked for basically everybody at some point. Apparently there's good money to be made in doing this. It doesn't sound that exciting to me, but what I do for a living, debugging code all day probably doesn't sound exciting. But when you get down to it, let's look back at the list. This is the big list of homework. When all is said and done, we are waiting to hear from Transportation Committee about that TAP grant. We are waiting to hear from Grace, and Grace is waiting to hear from us. And the Recreation Committee is waiting to hear from us. We're waiting to hear from them on next steps for all these recreation items. And
Can I make a comment on the recreation items?
please do.
And I would throw the 4th of July committee request sort of too.
If a pavilion would take care of it, I'm all for the pavilion.
So, if we were to put the criteria that we have right now against this, a lot of these line items that are very small would not fit that criteria very well as far as long lasting and, I think of this, I think of this money as being a windfall from a wealthy uncle, an inheritance that is intended to be used for, and frankly, I got a small inheritance, $2,000 when I was much younger. And I used it for things like, buying a house, educating my kids, investments that had a return, whether it was financial or, kind of life goals. Benches and picnic tables don't really fit that criteria for me. Those to me, a lot of these things, and one of the things I really appreciated about this committee and the process that we went through and the opportunity that we have is not every request needs to come from ARPA. Right, so like, I'm all for having a recreation budget line item, for consumables. A lot of these I consider consumables. And, you know, and we should be thinking about that in terms of our budget. But investing inheritance money, you know, for,
Toilet paper.
signage, you know, even signage, tables, benches. It just
Well-
doesn't seem like it fits the criteria to me.
Can
And
can I
think
speak to
that's
that
what-
just for a minute, Jay? Jay, can I speak
Sure.
to that just for a minute?
Go ahead, go ahead.
This is the idea for the park redesign, Jeff, was to open the mind to what the park could be for the next 50 to 100 years. And
That
since
fit- that
money
fits my
hasn't,
criteria.
since money hasn't been spent in the park in the last 20 years,
Mhm.
respectively, then if you're going to encourage more activity in the park with whatever you're going to do, whether it's a pavilion or whatever, you need the little pieces that go with that. You need the signage, you need the trash bins, and you need the benches. Those are small pieces that are the accessories to the larger picture. But here's my point. You're going to have
If it-
basically a grocery shopping list that's going to come to you, and you're going to be able to say, yes, I think we should spend money on the pavilion. I don't think they should have any trash cans at the pavilion, but they should have the pavilion, or the select board can decide
I
where the
don't
trash can
disagree
money
with you,
comes
Karen.
from.
I don't disagree
So
with you,
that's
Karen.
all I'm saying is it's the
Well,
whole
I get
picture
you
that's
going
going to be
next.
the whole picture that's going to be presented to you as the ARPA committee, and the ARPA committee can do whatever they want as far as recommendation. My point to you is we're going to leave it on the list. Whether ARPA says the money should be spent that way or select board says we're going to take it out of some other bucket, I don't have the ability to say what bucket comes from. You're a select board member, you do. So for me, I want to keep it on the list until it gets to the ARPA
I'm
committee.
fine with that.
Right.
I'm fine
Okay.
with that. And I
Okay.
could see all of these items being part of a volunteers green redesign.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
if it were all gathered together
Yeah.
into one project, I can
Yes.
see that. You know, it's just that I can't see saying, okay, next week, let's buy, benches.
Right.
Well, do you want it that way? Do you want it just, I thought you'd want to see the sum total, like just like this spreadsheet does. Here's the
This is
different
not part
pieces
of a
and the
plan.
total of,
But we're gonna work on a plan. I want to add
That's my
something
point
about
is-
parks.
you want to see a plan, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I want to add something about parks. A long time ago, when I was in graduate school, I just got my master's in public administration, and I actually took several courses in land use law, land use policy, zoning, the kind of thing that would put me on the track to be a town planner, except that I realized there's no money in it.
Hey, we have an opening.
I'm too out of practice, but you would not believe in terms of what citizens routinely cite as things that increase their happiness is the concept of a vibrant, attractive public park. Parks are huge.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, and so from the standpoint, and a lot of this stuff would be pretty long lasting stuff. I mean, there's no telling that somebody wouldn't burn a bench one night. People do stupid stuff like that. But this would be the opportunity to take a kind of decaying park and, as Kara said, position it for the next 50 years as a real attractive center of our town. I know right now we are always interested in building our tax base. We want companies to relocate here.
Becomes the media, but tickets for
One of the
your
things that
tour.
would make the town more attractive is a very nice park. That's just kind of my 2 cents. The individual.
Mary, I
line
think we're
item-
getting feedback. Mary, I think
individual
we're
line
getting
items we can
feedback.
Discussed, but
From what,
I think it does, it is suitable for ARPA. I think it's a.
No, yeah, I mean, that's all good, and I think it is a good, just to add, I mean, it is good to have a plan, but, I think it also is probably better when we decide to kind of summarize it as one line item and let the details, let somebody else worry about the details, but we still haven't gotten to the 4th of July, $45,000 item, so I still.
Right, it's just,
I'm perplexed as to how that really meets the criteria.
it's another thing that would be useful in the park. It would not just be for the 4th of July once a year. It would be something that the town could use. It would be part of the recreation line item. The town, because it would be taken out of the elements when it was not in use, it would be lasting for hopefully a pretty long time. And it would be available it would be a business opportunity. We could actually allow people to rent part of the park and rent the stage. It could be a fun, it could pay for itself if you look at it over a long enough period. But, for example, Waterbury has concerts in the park all summer long. Now, we could do that at the band show. There's no reason we couldn't. but it just doesn't have that same, it's not as open, it's not as large. There's a lot of things it could facilitate doing, but on the other hand, it may be something the pavilion we cover perfectly. Maybe we just get a stage from somebody for this year. Maybe we ask around. It turns out somebody's drunk uncle in Westford has a stage that he has in his barn. I'm open to all options. I just want to put this out there as something. If we're just thinking about alternatives, something we could think about. I would rather have a pavilion because pavilions can be used for more than just performances. They can be used for events, they can be used for picnics, and you can play music in them. I'm pretty sure that's allowed. But this would be an alternative if we, for some reason, decided not to do a pavilion.
So Kara,
Jay, can you sidebar? Can Jay sidebar with me about that, the 4th of July stuff? And then I'll just tag, Jay and I will
Sure.
meet up if you guys are all okay with that, and we'll relay the information to Grace. So it'll be, I agree with you, Tom. I do not see the 4th of July as a separate line item at all.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
was the-
So we've
Jeff,
got
you had a
lot of
question?
action.
Jeff was saying Kara something. I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest the same thing,
Yeah.
that hand this over to Grace and some kind of performing space within the park,
Right.
it would be useful.
At the end of the day, that's what it's about, is
Yeah.
having a space that's not confined, that has more open space around it. And that if
And
we
limited
could, it could be
liability.
something that would and that we could make money off, that we could, rent it out. Okay, so we've got a
Limited
number of
liability
things-
too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, Jay,
Well,
come back.
yeah, one more issue that's somewhat related, just, not sure how or what, if it's really worth a long conversation, but I've been noticing in Front Porch Forum, a lot of traffic about Cochrane's Road,
Cochrane. Mhm.
Uh-huh.
back and forth about Cochrane, safety of Cochrane's Road. I know we have the Bridge Street, and that sounds good and sounds great, but we haven't really. I know on the one of the first lists, Cochrane's Road was up
Right.
there as.
Can I give you an
high priority
update?
System.
Well,
So I'm wondering
There's a-
where, I
right.
don't want to lose that thread in terms of.
yeah, there's a
conversation.
lot going on. It's a good question. There's a lot going on vis-a-vis Cochrane Road. There's a number we're currently conducting. First off, there are a number of things we can't really do until we've done studies. The state doesn't free up money. The state doesn't even allow you to do certain things until studies are done. No one, I think, is seriously proposing closing Cochrane Road in one direction of traffic.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from.
I really know that came from, people really ran with it. But we have just picked sites for 2 more radar signs that will tell you your speed. Here's the best part. When you go too fast, they're gonna flash bright blue lights, just like a police car would. And we're hoping to scare the really out of people. We're going to be trying temporary speed bumps. We heard from some people that permanent speed bumps tend to get destroyed over winters by snow removal. But then other people said town X has them and theirs have been there for years. But it's a proof of concept.
Speed tables are different.
Speed table, yeah. Does this actually cause people to slow down before we invest in a lot of speed bumps? Do they work? So there are a lot of things that are currently in the air that are actually already going, that don't need ARPA money because they're already in the budget. If everything that we've got a study going on actually winds up getting implemented, it could make Cochrane Road hopefully significantly safer. And if not, well, at least we'll
We
try.
tried.
Yeah.
So I would recommend we do, and I don't know how to find it on our website. I'll have to talk to Katie about it. But we have a bike and pedestrian plan. It's about 70 or 80 pages.
I can forward that out to people.
It's really good and it has lots of ideas for Cochrane Road. The solution of having a dedicated multi-purpose path along Cochrane Road.
Right.
The scoping study, the preliminary scoping study estimate of that is somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 million. And it probably would not be eligible for grant money. So it would be lovely, but it's not likely to happen. And then the ARPA money wouldn't be anywhere near enough to do much about it.
Right. We've also looked at a monorail.
Yeah, right, so I think Cochrane Road will continue the entire time I've been on the board now for the past year. It comes up at least, every other meeting, if not every meeting.
But I'll send out that study to people. It is a very professionally done thing. There's a list in the back of every project that is considered at all. It includes trails, by the way. For example, it has the idea of a trail that would go from the Preston Pond Trails.
Yep.
to the top of Snuff Ireland Road. That's not to say it's gonna be
It's
put in
really
there,
a very cool plan.
but there every possibility, every place that we could think, well, what if we had a trail there? What if we had this there? And then there's a price. And so it's not pie in the sky stuff. This is stuff that's actually been thought through carefully. I would love to see a multi-use path along Cochrane Road, but if you have to consider the terrain,
It's really hard.
it would be really hard to do.
It'd be really hard, and so the transportation committee went through that plan and prioritized, there were no cost, low cost things, and then there were very high cost things that were actually higher priority, but not likely to happen, like that multi-use path. And this is what they came up with. This is the Bridge Street sidewalk project is the one that fits our criteria and their criteria that could happen within the time.
Yeah.
we're talking about.
But it is a good question. Eric, go ahead. You have some stuff to share.
Okay, so I don't want to ruin Grace's plan, okay? But part of the park redesign has a multi-use paved path all around the whole park parcel. She's met with Pete Goslin and he's walked it and said exactly where it could go, along with a dirt path right beside it that doesn't take up that much room. And it's about the size, the paved path is about the size of the sidewalks. And Pete says that he can plow it with the sidewalk plow and keep it keep it clear year round. So that can take some of the Cochrane Road traffic of young kids on bicycles, people with strollers, and potentially put them in the park. And some of the seniors in the community who want a safe place to walk now would have a safe place to walk. So I don't mean to blow up Grace's design and take her light, but that was one of the discussions to help potentially alleviate some of the pedestrian
Right.
traffic on
So-
Cochrane
And to,
Road.
and to add to that, it would make the park significantly more ADA compliant, because right now it is not
Correct.
ADA compliant.
Kara, is Grace gonna be able to put any kind of numbers to this design at all?
Yes, yeah, but she didn't. We stopped when I said, wait, Grace, I don't want you to waste your time if it's too late to do anything. I mean, you did this
No.
design, you presented to the rec committee, and then the rec committee said it's too late.
No.
And so the
No,
rec
that-
committee gave me permission to confirm with you guys if she could continue on with the numbers or not. So
This is
I will
worthwhile.
contact
This would
her.
be worthwhile to do whether we had the ARPA committee or not, or the ARPA committee or not.
Okay.
So.
Okay, well, and you know the money, the numbers are going to be good for only a certain period of time anyhow, but because
Okay.
prices change.
Great.
But I'll do
So-
that. And so I just wanted to bring that up I know, Tom, that was a great catch with the whole Cochrane Road thing. And that was an exciting piece that came out of the whole redesign plan. I was like, wow, that could maybe really help with some of the Cochrane Road traffic. At least hopefully the younger and older generations that are there as well. So I didn't mean to cut anybody off or anything like that. I just wanted to
No,
add
no, I
that
think
piece.
I think all these comments are very appropriate. So we have about 7 minutes. We don't actually have to go all the way till 8, by the way.
I'll have a suggestion,
Okay, go ahead.
a procedural suggestion.
Mhm.
So, there was some urgency. So we began this committee by meeting monthly.
Mhm.
And then we determined that, there was more urgency than monthly was hard to maintain momentum.
But you say now we're at the stage where we don't really need bi-weekly.
I'm thinking that maybe, we have study pieces that need to be brought back to
Mhm.
us. And maybe, maybe we skip a meeting at least, or do something like that.
That's exactly what I was going to propose we use the last 5 minutes for, is do we want to continue meeting monthly, or do we want to just arbitrarily say, or I'm just going out a month, until further notice, go to, 4th Wednesdays.
I would prefer that.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, I'm
It-
seeing
it-
nods from here in the room. What do you
Jay-
think?
Jay,
And Mary,
it
what do you
definitely
think?
gives,
Well, we need to reach out
I'll-
to everybody who's on the
here's
committee, not
Kara,
just people who are here.
here's Kara, and my input is it gives me time to work with Linda on the land record stuff. It gives me time to send the email to Grace to let Grace start working on numbers and proposals and stuff like that. I was already told ahead of time that UVM, I think, has break in March or something like that, and she'll be gone. So I don't know what her schedule is like with anything like that. So she knows that she was on hold until I talked to you guys.
So what we might be able to do
Mhm.
is instead of meeting
On the second.
bi-weekly, or like, I don't forget how you do that, is it bi-monthly or bi-weekly?
I think it's bi-monthly.
Every other week.
Yeah.
It feels like we need a lot.
Bi-weekly, bi-monthly would be.
And we meet for an hour, you know, it might be, more productive, to meet for an hour and a half once a month if we have something in depth to, review, like
Okay.
a park design. for example.
Okay. Would it be if we, I can live with an hour and a half, but I don't think I'd want to start at 7 at that point, because I don't really want to meet too late in the
That's
evening.
fine.
Yeah.
Could we do 6:30? What do people think about that? Kara, Mary, Josh, what do
We
you
don't
think?
need to, I'm not suggesting that we need to do an hour and a half for each meeting.
What would you be open to?
Six would be better.
6 would be better?
I have a class, I can't.
Okay, so
I'm
seven is-
already missing half of the class by coming, so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I chose to, and I told them
Okay.
that that's.
Well,
gonna happen.
it's something I'd like to sound out the rest of the committee, not just people who are here, but I would be, if the committee says, yeah, look, we have nothing really to do on the second Tuesday.
Mhm.
I think it's reasonable for us now to, if there's no objection, just go ahead and say we won't have our second meeting in March. Because that's gonna be a busy week anyway.
Jay, that puts us on what date for the next meeting? Just so I have I don't have a calendar right here in front of me, but if you
Yeah,
don't
how
mind,
about,
let's all make
So
sure.
Jay, perhaps you could put out these suggestions to the entire committee. I don't think it breaks open meeting law to.
300 days.
communicate,
Right, we'd be looking at the 22nd. The 8th would be just very difficult with everything else going on that week.
Mid-May would be good. I mean, March rather.
Hey,
Right.
I'm like, we're
So I'm
skipping
gonna-
March
send out
and
an email.
April.
I'll send out my spreadsheet. I'll send out discussion of the date. I will send out the transportation trails and roads and everything planned. And then Kara, you've got a sizable amount of homework, and so does Grace. And then we're also, of course, looking forward to hearing from Kara regarding the digitization, and we are waiting to hear from the Transportation Committee about the TAP grant.
And what about the town center?
Town Center Committee,
Yeah,
they're much
that'll
about.
give us time to
Yeah.
put that together.
I don't trust the Town
Jay,
Center
we
Committee.
should only reply to you though. If we start replying to everybody in a group email, it does trigger, you're not allowed to even discuss, changing meeting times because it's technically dealing with doing business. So
Right.
if we just reply to Jay, if we can or can't make something, right now, I'm going to vocally say to you, yes, I'm okay with going once in the month of March.
Mhm.
And after
Okay.
we've
We
gone
can
into
discuss
March,
it.
and you can go back to bi-weekly if that's what you need.
Yeah, I think that's good, that's good.
And the
Okay.
library, you wanted to talk to.
And we
the
want to hear
library.
from the library, yes, absolutely. So we've got constituencies to hear from.
And this will give us, there are also some grant programs where that shoe hasn't dropped yet, so.
Right, so I think we've got a good way forward for the next month.
And I think we can assure the rest of the select board that we're still only early in 2023. We don't need to obligate this money until the end of 2024. And spend it till by the end of 2026. We're still a long ways away from all of
Well,
that.
right, but if on the other hand, we get solid numbers back from transportation,
There we
committee,
go.
that would be an example where we do need to pull the trigger.
And we could pull the trigger on individual projects
Yes.
for Matt.
And that
County,
takes us back to what I said at the very start. We need to keep in sight. It does not all have to happen at
That
once.
one's.
Right, but
So I think
I
it's-
agree with you, Jeff, I agree with you with that, and I just want to make sure I'm hearing exactly what both you and Jay are saying. I just want to make sure I'm comprehending it, is that if a project, we can wait till then, but we don't necessarily want to because of construction time period, supplies, etc. That if there's a project that everybody on the committee is like, yes, we should move this to the next phase, which is having select board review the project, then we don't have to decide on the full 1.2 to recommend to the select board. Okay,
Right.
thank you. Thank you.
That sounds.
That
Yes,
sounds
I think
great.
we're all seeing eye to eye. Okay, it is 7:59. We don't have to go too late. We don't. So can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, please state your name and your vote.
Rachel, I.
Yeah, bye.
Kara, I.
Jay, aye.
Mary, aye.
Okay, thank you all
Mary,
very much.
aye.
I will see you
Thank you.
presumably in a month, but I'll be talking to you via email.